Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way YouTube channel for Thursday's morning briefing. My name is Ryan McGinlay at the Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle. Tony, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, been very well all week. It's been good. I've just been smiling since Sunday. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like the positive vibes are back. Yeah, absolutely. I think despite us being quite positive in all of these briefings, I think the general mood has been quite dismal and negative over the past 2 or so weeks. So it's good to sort of get rid of that and go and get that positive mindset back in and around the club and in and around talking about the club. So can't complain whatsoever. Thanks to everybody that is joining us so far this morning. We really do appreciate it. And sorry for being a tad late. You know, we had some scheduling issues on our end. I was waiting for my room to become available. You know what it's like, one in, one out. These are the joys of working from home. But before we start talking about today's topics, which it seems to be a lot more positive than negative in terms of the topics that we're going to talk about today, if I could get everyone to have a look at the ticker tape down at the bottom of the screen. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. On there just now, that dropped this morning, was Tony's interview with Doris de Vries, in which he talked about both Joe Hart and Brendan Rodgers. You know, he's well versed to talk about both, one being that he's a goalkeeper, and two, Brendan Rodgers tried to sign him 3 different times. I think he got him twice, but he tried to sign him for 3 different clubs. That shows you how much of a fan Doris de Vries was. A couple of fleeting appearances for Celtic. You know, he did play in the 5-1 victory against Rangers. What won that season? It was the home game. But yeah, he's definitely, his name will always be remembered as part of that invincible treble team. So yeah, he'll always be a part of Celtic's history, despite how little of an impact he made, or how less of an impact he would have wanted to have made. He probably would have wanted more, but I think Joe Hart get the number 1 jersey by the end of that season. Also on the website, there's plenty of news stories talking about Celtic. You know, there's stuff covering the Women's Champions League win for Fran Alonso's Celtic women team. There is talk about Mitchell Frame, which we'll talk about also on this podcast, and there'll be plenty of stuff daily. It's a bit more difficult. We don't really have 2 articles going a day because it's the international break and there's not as many breaking news coming out, but you know, we do our best to give you 1 new piece a day. So if you are interested, then please give us a go at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And if you're feeling even more generous, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because it's really helping us. I mean, the growth that we've had over the past month has been absolutely incredible. We really do appreciate it. And by subscribing to both, you help us continue to do these free videos and the content that we do on the website too. By doing that, you support us and you support everything that we do. So we really do appreciate it if you are involved. If you do have the money and you do have the time, then please do subscribe to us and get involved. It's good content on there, both free and paid. So if you are interested, then please give us a go. And then one more thing as well before we start, the Celtic Way have launched their new app as well. You might see on the Celtic Way's Twitter page that I made a couple of tweets talking about the new app, which is available on the Google Play Store and the App Store, the Apple App Store. So I will post links to that as well and into the description at the end of this video. So if you just refresh the page and go back, then you'll see those links on the page. Tony, so let's get started. Let's get talking about Celtic finally. I've did all the advertising. It's time to talk about Celtic. The good news yesterday that was spreading yesterday about midday or so was coming from Anthony Joseph, and he was saying that Celtic's midfielder Matt O'Reilly is set for a contract extension, or talks were set to begin regarding increased terms for the Danish midfielder Matt O'Reilly. 4 goal involvements this season. He's been an absolutely pivotal part to Brendan Rodgers, the successful parts of Brendan Rodgers' second reign so far, I would say. Everything good has came from Matt O'Reilly, you could say, between him and Kyogo, obviously. Just what are your thoughts on this? Because it's something that I've been talking about for a wee while. I've been talking about how Celtic need to tie Matt O'Reilly down because he's going to have a breakout season. It seems that is the case, and Celtic are making it their due diligence to get him on increased terms.
Well, let's be honest, he's been an absolute revelation since he came in the building. He was the poster boy for the way Angie's team wanted to play, didn't he? And he revelled under Ange, but from the moment Brendan Rodgers has walked in, he seemed to be a happier player as well, hasn't he? because he seems that the demarcation lines are clearly marked. The manager said to him, "You're an awesome talent. Why don't you score a lot more goals?" And he's kind of listened and he's thought, right, so he's involved in 4 goal involvements. And I made the point the other day in the pod about his header. That just wasn't a header into no man's land. He was setting Kyogo up because you knew Kyogo would be alive. And if he was onside, he would have latched onto it. And it turns out he was. So, and I picked out his pass for Jota that time as well. That quick thinking of the feet and the brain. And when Matt O'Reilly's on song, there's few better midfielders in the country, is there, to watch. And for $1.5 million from NK Don's an absolute steal. But he is beginning to enjoy his football and enjoy working under this manager. What did we say when Brendan Rodgers came in? He would improve players. Improve Matt O'Reilly. What an asset you have in your hands. And I think there's a, there's a, from both sides and both parties' sides, I think there's a willingness to get this done. So I think Matt O'Reilly wants to stay. You look at that 10 million bid from Leeds, utterly derisory.
It's offensive now, I would say.
Yeah, and it will be offensive in the years to come. Now, regardless of how long Matt O'Reilly stays, I'm of the opinion you enjoy these players when you can. So it's and as long as Matt O'Reilly stays, he will continue to give his all for Celtic, and he's enjoying working under Brendan Rodgers. It was apparent from the first interview that he gave. He wasn't slagging Ange. Let's get this right. He wasn't having a pop. He was just telling you, giving you a wonderful insight how 2 different managerial operators worked. One was a wee bit more aloof from his players. It worked for Ange Postecoglou. It's working for Ange Postecoglou right now. Brendan Rodgers is a wee bit more arm round the shoulder. Players, he talks to players, he socialises with them. So whatever works for you. And I think that was a wonderful insight that Matt O'Reilly gave. Didn't take it as a dig towards Ange Postecoglou. Each manager has their own style and their own way of doing things. And again, going back to that, Brendan Rodgers has his own style and his own way of doing things. And you're starting to see that come to fruition now with the way he wants to play. Sunday was a real acid test. 2 games before it, you forget about it. Right off. Okay, they're out the League Cup and he drew a blank against Johnson, but it is what it is. But Sunday felt like it was a marker laid down, and it seemed like a kind of, a turning point in Celtic's season, even so early in. And Matt O'Reilly played a crucial part in that. Liam Scales got the man of the match. I argue the toss that Callum McGregor or Matt O'Reilly could easily have got it, or even Dies and Maida if you want to talk about work rate, application, effort, all that kind of thing, and nullifying of James Tavernier. So it depends which spectrum you're looking at the game through. But Matt O'Reilly's been pivotal to Celtic, and now you want to see Matt O'Reilly and Celtic go on to that next stage. You want to see him do it in Europe. You want to see him claim some scouts in Europe. And and I just think, I've said it all along since he came in, he's a baller. You know a baller when you see one, don't you? You've watched enough football.
Yeah.
A baller. And Matt O'Reilly's a baller. And and I think Brendan Rodgers is right to say a man of that talent, you should be scoring more goals. And he's took it on board. That's the thing, he's listening. And even against St Johnstone, he could have burst in it 3 or 4 times and everybody, ringing their hands in their head and were critical of him. These things happen. Goalkeeper has a wonderful day. Matt's didn't have the shooting boots on, but his headed pass towards Kyogo on Sunday, watch it again. He knows it's a guy in control of what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Put it in between the 2 central defenders and knew that Kyogo would be alive to it. And if he kept himself on side, he would have an effort at goal. And he had an effort at goal, all right. Smashed it in from 20 yards. I mean, it's like, it's quick thinking. It's the brain. It's what I talk about all the time. The snooker players on the field. Matt O'Reilly saw that in pictures. I heard that there. He's got a strike at goal. That was the outcome that Matt O'Reilly had in his head the moment he put the ball forward. Right, and just weighted it perfectly. But it came up in the bounce, and Kyogo's thoughts are always, can I get a shot away? So I don't think you could have passed the ball any better. With your foot.
No, it was like a pass because even the power he got on it as well. There's that sort of finesse on the header. It's very difficult to put that amount of finesse in like a deft touch on a header, but Matt O'Reilly manages to do it. He weights it perfectly and it falls perfectly into Kyogo's.
It was a cushion threaded pass. Like, go on you go. And as I say, that it wasn't aimless. It was right in between the two kind of centre back, because Goldson was kind of on his way back, having headed it forward, and Suter, and you've got a split second to make up your mind in those situations, Ryan. Mm-hmm. How often do you head that forward and somebody else heads it back, or it's just mopped up, cleared? He knew
that's what Connor Goldson did. Yeah, that's what Connor Goldson did, and he paid the price for that because Matt O'Reilly was 2 steps ahead.
Switched on, and that turned out to be the difference in the game. 2 players were switched on, Matt O'Reilly at that moment and Kyogo in the moment the ball drops, and that's why you're tying him up on a new deal. That's invaluable to Celtic moving forward. Brendan Rodgers knows it, Matt O'Reilly knows it, and I'm all for players being happy, and I think Brendan Rodgers can bring I'm not saying there wasn't any harmony when Ange Postecoglou was, of course there was, they're born winners, but see when you're really happy and content at your work and you're offered a new deal or better terms, and everything seems to be rosy in the garden, as you say, for want of a better expression, why wouldn't you want to play for Celtic? Celtic can offer you a lot. You're getting into the Champions League to play 6 wonderful games against Feyenoord, Atletico Madrid and Lazio. Not a lot of people can offer Matt O'Reilly that at this stage in his career. And he's not daft. He's only, 21, 22?
22 years old.
He'll go on to become he'll go on to become a Danish internationalist. He will go
absolutely
for multi-millions at some point. But at this juncture, he's happy with Celtic. He's happy with Brendan Rodgers. And he's just happy with his own game. And you can tell because he's doing all the things that the manager has come in and asked of him. And to me, and I've said it for a long time, that he's a terrific footballer. Celtic have a wonderful, terrific footballer and asset on their hands. And what a steal at $1.5 million. Absolute brilliant piece of business. And he has risen to that challenge. He's just not been phased at all. There's a confidence and an assuredness about him. I mean, you were looking at it as well, the interceptions as well. He just seemed to be all over the park, especially in the second half. And he doesn't lack a bit of dig either, Ryan,
No, I think he's Celtic's most, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'll keep on hammering home this point. He is Celtic's most underrated defender because the amount of work that he does off the ball. It maybe looks a bit awkward because he's taller and he's in the midfield, so it might look as if he's maybe not uninterested, but he is quite a gangly figure. He is Celtic's tallest outfield player, apart from the centre backs and Nawrowski and Lagerbielke. Before then, he was Celtic's tallest player, apart from Joe Hart.
Yeah.
So maybe you would expect some defensive responsibilities from Matt O'Reilly because of his size and how he can put himself about. But I just think that Matt O'Reilly's done so well since that wobble that he had last season. Now I think there was a lot of factors down to that. I think it was his first full season playing for a big club in Celtic. I know he'd been in and out of the team at Fulham. He didn't really get his chance there, so he had to go out and loan. MK Dons, they were playing in League One. There isn't that same amount of pressure playing at MK Dons that there is about Celtic. At MK Dons, probably a draw is a good result sometimes. At Celtic, a draw is a defeat. We'll have found that out when he didn't have his shooting boots on against St Johnstone a couple of weeks ago. But I remember, and I attended this press conference as part of the podcast that I did. Matt O'Reilly was talking about how he was maybe struggling with the mental side of the football off the pitch. He was struggling with acclimatising to that. And I thought it was very open and honest from a footballer, because a lot of footballers don't want to talk about how they're feeling off the pitch and how they're dealing with things. So I thought it was really refreshing. It's clear that he's a very intelligent person as well as an intelligent footballer. He's got the IQ on the pitch, but he's definitely got it off the pitch. He's very, very well spoken. There's a reason why he does a lot of the pre-match and post-match interviews, because he's a safe pair of hands in front of the media. You know what you're going to get with him. I just thought that was really interesting, and I'm so delighted to see this upturn in form for him, because he did a really hard job. He was trying to be Callum McGregor in the first half of the season when Callum McGregor was injured. That will have That will have obscured his stats a little bit as well because he wasn't playing as further forward. I think that might have something to do with the fact that he didn't score as many goals last season because he was playing in that number 6 role. You know, he wasn't as near to the goal as what he would have been as a number 10. But I just think that him talking about his mental health and then the start that he's had to this season, which is all sort of which has led to that man in the match performance. I would say man in the match performance against Rangers. I think it's just a great full circle for a player that really, really does deserve it.
And I tell you what, there will be as well. See that dialogue between the manager and himself. If he is struggling mentally, he can go to Brendan Rodgers. I'm not saying he couldn't go to Ange Postecoglou, but you got the impression that Ange was very much aloof from players at certain times. But I think Matt O'Reilly's kind of signposting and saying he's my kind of guy because I can talk to him about anything. And it's not just anything football related. I think Matt O'Reilly would have a wonderful conversation with Brendan Rodgers about the mental side of football, and he won't be afraid to speak out about it. And he'll have someone in Brendan Rodgers who'll have been there, seen it, and done it, and might be able to offer him even more guidance. But you just got that impression that it was kind of a fusion together of two like-minded people. Matt O'Reilly from day one has thought, this is my kind of manager. And Brendan Rodgers has also come out and said, this is my kind of player. He's an intelligent guy. He's an older head and really young shoulders, isn't he? In terms of football. He just thinks like a veteran footballer who's played the game for a lot of years. I think Brendan Rodgers can see that in him. I mean, this guy will go on he'll win many Danish caps. He's got a good 10 years of international football.
He's lucky with his timing as well.
I mean, he's timed that to perfection, hasn't he? And good luck to him. And I just enjoy watching him. I just think, when you're watching something special and you're watching something, you're charting that development with Matt O'Reilly. And there's every week he gives you something to cheer about. And you were talking about his kind of gangliness as well, but I referred to him as Crazy Legs Crane the other week, didn't I? But he's very good at using those crazy legs and keeping the ball and holding it. And
it's like a hook, isn't it? With his tackles,
he very rarely loses it. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. He's good at getting his leg hooked round the ball and dispossessing people, and then of course with interceptions as well. He's got a long reach in terms of his his leg stretch, so he can cut things out. Coming at speed and pace or whatever, because he did it numerous times, and I think again that's another footballer thinking, what talents do I have? How can I best utilise them on the park? We're hooking the ball around, past people and dispossessing them, stopping and intercepting by just throwing a leg out, jabbing a leg out and stuff like that, as well as protecting the football when you have it, and just being switched on at all points and using all your talents and skills to see the game in pictures. Which is why Brendan Rodgers has migrated towards him and Callum McGregor, because these are his guys on the field. He's trusted lieutenants, and he trusted them on Sunday in that midfield to go and do a job, and along with various others. But those two in particular, they had to play on Sunday. If they did not function, Celtic were in trouble, because you would have just came through. Rangers would have came through and onto that defence, and as much as they didn't offer much in the end up, because the likes of Lagerbielke and Scales put up a great defence, they didn't come through them too much, because most of the time Callum McGregor and Matt O'Reilly had the ball and were distributing it well and finding their own men and doing what good players do, taking the heat out of the opposition and creating stuff for their teammates. So yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers has touched upon it. And I wouldn't say it's a weakness in his game per se, but just something that can be improved upon, and that's his goals ratio and what he's been involved. You said four goals this season, two goals, 2 assists, isn't it?
4 goal involvements this season so far.
Yeah, so that's 4 games gone. So that's all right, isn't it? Can live with that.
Yeah, and I think it shows even more because he didn't contribute in terms of a goal or assist in those 2 games in the middle, which shows how good he was in both the first 2 games and then the game against Rangers. I still think he was Celtic's best player in those games that they dropped points and went out the League Cup. I thought he was the best midfielder by some distance in the Kilmarnock game. I know that isn't an accolade that he would like to have because Celtic lost and they went out the League Cup, but I thought he was doing the job of three players that day. He was trying his hardest to make things happen. St Johnstone won. I don't think that Celtic should be relying on their attacking midfielder to be scoring the goals or the chances that he got. I think that was maybe a problem with the formation. If Kyogo gets those chances, I think it would have been 3 or 4-0 on the day. It just came to the wrong guy. I think Matt O'Reilly, despite being a good finisher at times, I think he prefers to be that assister. He prefers to set people up. And you've seen that against Rangers, that header. That's O'Reilly at his best for me. You know, he's accommodating Kyogo.
Yeah. He just wants to be involved, Ryan. You know, at all stages, whether it's applying the finishing touch himself or being involved in the move that leads to goals. He just wants to be involved, and he's getting more and more involved. And I think it's great to see that, you know, Celtic are willing to sit them down and have dialogue. I think Matt O'Reilly's even more willing to have that dialogue, and you can see him joining Kyogo, Daisen Maeda, and Lila Bada in signing, you know, new terms, an improved deal, and also if Rio Hitachi could join all of them in that, then it's you know, Celtic have conducted some wonderful business here, because you have to hold on to what you have in terms of trying to build something. And I think Brendan Rodgers, when he said that first day, I'm here for 3 years unless I get bagged, binned, or emptied. That was the phrase he used, emptied. Yeah, I think he might be. He's the kind of guy that would say to them, "Stay with me for as long as you can. I know economics will dictate, and your form might dictate that you have to leave, but you know, I've got a plan here to take Celtic to where we want to go. Stick with me. You're vital to it." And I think if you can keep players happy, then the only reason they would leave is for money, isn't it? And the challenge possibly down south. I get that, you know, but Celtic offer a lot to players, especially young players, and there will be, you know, you have to jump on that train when it's moving at the right time. You know, Matt O'Reilly's time will come. There's no doubt about that. But when you're working with, and I keep going back to elite level manager like Brendan, you know, I think he's 40 is keeping a happy ship. And if you can keep players happy, then they don't have to seek happiness elsewhere. Because there's a lot of people have found out grass isn't always greener when you leave Celtic, and that personal happiness might not come around. So as long as the manager's in situ, then I'm happy that players that Kyogo, Daisen Maeda, Lila Bada, hopefully Rio Hitachi, and certainly Matt O'Reilly, I'm hopeful, very hopeful that they'll stick around as well, as long as the manager's here too, until they all get emptied, I guess, or they're sold on or whatever.
It's just a natural progression of football, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's all about, and this is a point that we always talk about, it's all about selling players at their optimum as well. And you can only do that if their contract agrees with that. You know, the longer you've got as a contract, well, it doesn't. If you're a rubbish player and you've got a long contract, it doesn't matter because nobody will touch you. If you're a good player with a long contract, it acts as a bit of a deterrent for clubs to lowball you, or if a club is going to come in and try and purchase you, then it's going to have to be for a premium rate. That's why it's important for in both sides. It's important to keep the players happy. It's important for the finances as well, because the more that Celtic can get for the players, the more they can improve, because the players that they let go, then they can reinvest in the squad and maybe find even better players or even better hidden talents in other areas of the world. I just think in terms of that list that you gave there, they're all part of the spine of the club for me. And the only other one that I would put to that at the moment is Cameron Carter-Vickers. I know he's been in and out of the team from injury the past couple of months, but I think he's got 3 years left on his deal. If Celtic could get an extension onto his contract, he might be even more willing to do so because of his injury and his situation. You know, they've helped. The club have helped me through my injury, so I'll repay them by signing an extension. That sometimes happens in football. If that could be the case, then I think that Celtic have pretty much managed to sign their whole spine up to new deals, which would be an incredible bit of business in terms of in terms of summer re-recruitment, it's not summer recruitment, but it's like re-recruitment, summer renewals. That would be some great business by the club.
I think you're just safeguarding yourself. Tying Matt O'Reilly in a new deal. Somebody comes in from there paying a pretty penny. Same as Carter Vickers, who has 3 years. I'm not so worried about this season, but when it gets to 2 years, I'd be certainly nailing Cameron Carter Vickers to a contract. If he'll sign one. So I'm okay about certain things, but yeah, I just think that would be a sound piece of business, and I've alluded to it before as well. That's when you act like a big club, Ryan. Protect your assets moving forward, and give them the best possible deal that you can offer them as a football, and the best possible deal for the club. And then, if someone is to try and tempt them away or prize them away, then you get the best possible financial recompense that you can for them. That's how big clubs operate. We know that they're not going to stay at Celtic for life, but as long as, I've said before, they give their all, the club are successful, they go with your best wishes, and Celtic gets suitably recompensed, then you cannot argue with that business model that Celtic have. It's proved fruitful and successful in the past, and the manager has said he's going to stick to it. So that's all fine and well. But you have to look after, you have to protect what you have, even more so, I think, than going out and bringing in new players. But you protect what you have. At first, you talk about the spine of the team. That's exactly what you do, and then you work on other things from then onwards, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about getting the foundations. The foundations are so important to every team, and then you can work on other things. I just noticed a couple of people in the comments talking about, and I'm going to actually talk about something that they're talking about in the comments, because I think it's interesting, and it's part of the international break as well, so it's definitely something that deserves to be talked about. Patrick McLaughlin comes in, thanks for your comment, and says, I feel Iwata will be back in Japan in January. Michael Ross then comes in and says, I'm baffled why Rodgers doesn't rate Iwata. Now, he wasn't on the bench at the weekend, and he's not played a single minute. This is Iwata that we're talking about, Tomoki Iwata, that signed last January on loan. His loan was made permanent. It was an obligatory buy option on his contract to Yokohama F. Marinos, or Yokohama to Celtic, rather. So the only minutes he got in pre-season were because he was covering for Tony Ralston at right back. He's not played a single minute at defensive midfielder. Now, I thought that Tomoki Iwata was really quite good when he came on for Celtic last season, apart from maybe a couple of games that he looked shaky, but even then he was playing out of position, or playing in a position that maybe he didn't prefer or enjoy doing. At centre back, I think he's more of a defensive midfielder. I don't know about you, Tony. I find it's a bit of a weird one. I thought he was maybe a player that Brendan Rodgers would have got more of a use out of, especially in that number 6 role. But then again, Kwon isn't getting the same game time as well, so it might be just that sort of player isn't ready for this type of team just yet. Either that or Callum McGregor's just too good in that position to be moved.
I'll stand by it. What I say all the time about this: the manager watches these players every day in training.
True.
Right? There's no further proof than you need that he clearly doesn't rate him, or he doesn't think he's ready, or, as you say, the guys that are in. I think Brendan Rodgers would probably think there's better players than Iwata at the club at the minute. That's a toss you can argue all day long. I don't think Celtic supporters have really seen enough of Iwata to turn around and say, give you any kind of definitive. They've seen him in flashes, seen him in fits and starts, and he's looked okay. But I think Brendan Rodgers gave everybody the chance during close season to make their mark. Even Turnbull got the nod at some point, but you think that Turnbull's maybe slipping down the pecking order again. So there's something with Iwata that's not functioning, and it's not taking Brendan Rodgers' fancy, whatever that may be. We might find out in the fullness of time. He may well go back to Japan in January. Might be disappointing to some people, but I can't for life me understand well, I can understand that. He just clearly doesn't float Brendan Rodgers' boat, does he? Or else he would have given him more game time. And as I say, managers study everything. They watch everything in training, including the dreaded body language, whatever that may be. So, whatever issue there is with Tomoki Iwata, Brendan Rodgers clearly at this moment in time isn't impressed. And again, he would probably fire the warning shot to Tomoki Iwata that he fired to Rio Atati. Going to have to work some to get into his team. Got to do more. So whatever that more is, Tomoki Iwata clearly isn't doing it because he's not even quoted. So I trust the manager's judgment on these things implicitly, Ryan, as much as your own personal thoughts are, could he be doing with Iwata in the team? You know, it's debatable, isn't it, amongst a lot of supporters, but you know, the manager answered a lot of questions on Sunday, I think, with the team shape, the lineup, and you know, and the way they played. And if he turns around and says, if Tomoki Iwata's not quoted, he's not quoted.
Pretty much.
I'm bound to that knowledge because you're seeing things that I'm not. So I'll doff my cap to that. But it is a mystery, isn't it? It's a mysterious one, and it's one that I think a lot of supporters would want cleared up, wouldn't they?
Yeah, especially with the optics of it, I would say as well, due to the fact that he was maybe not unveiled as a new signing, but it was announced by the club that he'd signed a permanent deal. Now, a lot of Celtic fans thought that was the case anyway, and they thought that the announcement was a bit late, as if, it was a bit of an afterthought. Yeah, he did sign for us. Did you not know that? Almost. It was a bit of a weird one, especially for a player that I think did quite well whenever he came on. I think that I don't know. Some people maybe lumped Kobayashi and Iwata because the two of them played in some games and lumped the two of them together and gave them the same criticism. I thought Tomoki Iwata was a lot better than Kobayashi in the games that the two of them played. You know, you've got to remember he was in he played in the cup final against Inverness. He was playing at centre back, and I thought he actually had a decent game. His distribution out from the back was quite good as well. It is a weird one, but I think the one thing about Iwata is that he's not a young player. He's 26 years old. If he isn't playing for Celtic, he's in the prime of his career just now. 26 to about 30, 31 will be the prime of a midfielder's career. So if he's not playing, then he's going to have to make a move in January in order to get game time. That might come at the cost. The fact that he hasn't moved, maybe he couldn't move due to the fact that he just signed for the club, but that might have cost him a place in the Asia Cup for Japan. You know, if he was getting games, then he would maybe be I know the midfield is a very crowded place for Japan. I know they've got the midfielder Endo that plays for Liverpool now, so he'll play in the same position as Iwata. But it's these things that players think about. You know, he's 26. He'll be like, how many international tournaments have I got left? And yeah, it's a weird one. It's one that needs to get resolved, I think.
Also, as well, Ryan, you look at Sunday. He trusted Odin Thiago home to come on, didn't he? At Ibrox. Mm-hmm. So that tells you as well, Brendan's mindset. He likes Odin Thiago home, doesn't he? You know, gave him a start at Commandant. It didn't work out, but he spoke highly of him. He said he was a bright spark. Him and Yang, I think he mentioned, were bright, you know, and showed in fits and starts in that match. And he trusted Odin Thiago home in the most important game of the season so far to go into Ibrox and make an impact and make a difference. And he actually did. And you could see why. So, you know, so that leads to Iwata slipping further down the pecking order if he's on that order at all. And it's a real strange one. And I can see where Brendan Rodgers is going with these kind of things. You know, he loves O'Reilly, loves Cal Mack, you know, clearly trust Odin Thiago home, gave Turnbull his chance, took it for the opening game but hasn't really shone since. So does he now go, okay, Iwata, I'll take I'll see what you've got to offer. But I think in those four are certainly above Iwata, and if there's any kind of pecking order there, isn't there? And I think Iwata's got a big job in his hands to try and convince the manager that. And obviously, you've got Hatate to come back as well. So, and he's already warned Hatate that you're not going to be a regular starter unless you do this, this, and this. So I'm looking at things and thinking, well, Odin Thiago Holmes clearly listening, because he was in the squad for Ibrox. He came on and he played very, very well. You know, Hatate started to play well when he came into the team and then get injured at Pittodrie. Again, starting to listen. So you get a rejuvenated Hatate to come back, and that shoves you further down any kind of order there. So what you got McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Holm, Turnbull, Iwata.
It's a very stacked midfield, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can only pair how many 3 from 6, I guess, can't you? And then obviously you're fighting for a place on the bench, and he's not even been quoted for that. So something's going on there. Might be reading too much into it, but I think the Celtic supporters certainly would want some explanation or some rationale as to why Iwata is not getting more game time than he should be. I mean, he came with a reputation of Japanese Footballer of the Year, wasn't he?
MVP, yeah.
Yeah, and so, so there's some reasoning behind it, and until the manager addresses it or he's asked about it, then we'll never really know, because you're going by team selections, aren't you? You're going by squads. And again, I'll go back to it. You're going by the fact that the manager watches these guys every day in training, and something's amiss with Iwata.
I think that's always the thing that's said when people say, oh, he deserves a chance, this and that. But they get their chance in training. They can't get any closer to the manager than they do in training. That's their opportunity. They've got to treat training like actual games, because if you don't put your 100% in at training, there's no chance you're going to get selected for the first team. Getting selected for the first team and starting lineups is a privilege that's earned by training well. And I think Hatate's found that out. Maybe his training wasn't up to the standards of what it usually was. Brendan Rodgers put him on the bench. He's clearly learned from it. It was so unfortunate that he got his injury at Pittodrie, because it looked as if Hatate was taking that position back, very much so. When he came on at Pittodrie, played a great 20 minutes. What a cameo. If you go back and watch that 20 minutes, see the difference in the midfield, because Aberdeen were playing well against Celtic. You bring Hatate on and they're totally stifled. They only come back into the game because Hatate gets brought off the pitch. He's the leveller, or his removal is the leveller between the two sides. I think it's a weird one with Iwata, and it's definitely one that we're going to have to keep our eye on. Just before we go into some of the next stuff that the next topics that we're going to talk about, if I could just point everybody down below to the ticker tape again. If you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, we've got £4 for 4 months. If you're interested, you'll get the best Celtic journalism that the internet has to offer. You'll get pieces from myself, from Tony, from Stuart Ross. He's been doing analysis pieces. There's a great analysis piece of Matt O'Reilly's performance against Rangers on the homepage. If you're interested in that, then please check it out. Alan Morrison also did a piece on whether it was good defending from Celtic or poor finishing by Rangers, with some interesting statistics to be found in that piece. So if you are interested in the analytical side of things, then please give us a try at celticway.co.uk/subscribe. There's something for everyone on there. And if you don't like using Google Chrome or Safari, then please download our app on the App Store, on the Google Play Store. It makes it so much easier to click in and out of articles. It's optimized for phone, for different phones such as Android phones and Apple phones. So if you are interested in getting a more streamlined experience, then please check out our app on your respective app stores. Just having a wee look on Tony, I'm just having a wee look on the Celtic Way website to look at some recent news stories that are coming out. Over the past half an hour or so, it seems that Gustav Lagerbielke has been talking in his local media about how he was enjoying silencing Ibrox. I don't know how well he did silencing Ibrox when he was a big part of the reason for that disallowed goal. But I'm just gonna read out some of the comments that he's made. He says he's delighted with the way things have gone so far. We had 2 tough results going into the derby against Rangers. So it was a very important win, and there was a lot of emotion after the game. This is his quotes. It was nice to keep Ibrox quiet. It was an awesome experience. I had been given a little warning about what it would be like, but it was kind of cooler than I thought. It was very important that we won. To be called up for Sweden was a dream come true for me. It's been so intense since I moved, and this is the latest chapter. I've just got to go with the flow, and of course we have the Champions League to look forward to. The draw was a bit surreal. I had to pinch myself that I was sitting at Celtic Park watching the Champions League draw. In fact, it's probably the only time I've been nervous so far at Celtic. I think I was a wee bit nervous about he's disallowed part in that goal. But it will be fun to play in the Champions League. We play against 3 good teams with fantastic stadiums and fans. There'll be 6 tough matches with an incredible setting for them all. He says, I even viewed Carol Starfelt's old flat in Glasgow, but it was too nice for me. But I did talk to him in the camp this week, and it was nice to share his experiences. We hadn't actually met before the gathering here, so it was fun to talk. Some nice comments there from Lagerbielke, and it seems as if he's getting settled into life at Celtic. I thought he really did stabilise himself well after that mistake, or the foul, rather, because it was a foul. It was given as a foul, but, he could have been better on the ball. But he stabilised.
I tell you what I did like. I liked the fact that Brendan Rodgers spoke about it and told him he'll need to learn from that. I liked that. That was just a...
Yep. Is it half-time too? I like that.
Brendan Rodgers said it full tight well when he spoke to us that you'll need to learn, but that was the old, again, another warning shot. You got away with one there, got the benefit of a decision. And yeah, it was a foul, but it could have easily gone the other way, but it was a foul. The rule said it was a foul, so, but, Brendan was saying you'll need to learn to shove it away quicker or create another angle, or, so I think that's one way of saying that's a rough edge in your game. It ends now because Celtic nearly paid the penalty, because Brendan Rodgers said Celtic were on top at that point, and they were on top at that point. And he said, had they conceded there, he'd have been unhappy. So I like the fact that he mentioned that, because the player will hear that, take it on board, you don't do it again. But good to see that he's loving his life in Glasgow, and it always helps when you come through a stern test like that. And him and Scales, and I said it before, I thought they muddled through it. They somehow muddled through that Ibrox game and managed to keep a clean sheet. How they did it is still a great mystery to me. They defended resolutely and stoutly, but again, I think most people would admit that they were disappointed. You'd have been disappointed with Rangers in terms of what they threw at them. They were able to control it and get in the way of everything. And like you said, after that, I thought he knuckled down and they did the job. They did what I said was a kind of Ron Seal thing. They won it in the air and they cleared it on the deck. Did exactly what it said in the tin. I think, and I'm glad about that, because I think that will give them the confidence levels. They'll surge through the roof now that if they can cope with that, they can cope with anything. I think of the two, Lagerbielke was the least convincing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Of the two centre-backs.
I think just due to that flashpoint, yeah.
But they got there in the end, and good to see that he's enjoyed that and he's kind of given it right. Okay, I think he's well aware that he needs to improve, but moving forward, he's going to be one of 2 centre-backs that Celtic play, in the upcoming X amount of games. So hopefully he's emboldened by that experience and can take his game to greater levels. But it's nice to hear that they're enjoying it and they're getting there, because nerves are a good thing too. When you're a Celtic player, it's not entirely a bad thing.
Yeah, you don't want to be robots. You don't want players to be robots.
But you realise the enormity of the team you're playing for and the tasks that you face. So if that Champions League draw gives them the kind of good, I think that's a good thing. And going out and I'll big up to him for the fact that that's a huge test so early in your Celtic career as a central defender, when everybody's looking at you to do what they did and keep a clean sheet. And it doesn't matter how they did it. They did it. So it's no mean feat, especially with a back four that hadn't played together before. for Sunday. So I think you have to give plaudits where it's due and say to Lagerbielke and Scales, well done. Brendan Rodgers said he got that performance of men from him. When you look at Lagerbielke, he still looks quite young, doesn't he? As a person. So I think that was one of those performances where you grow into the Celtic jersey, don't you? And I think there's a lot of growth and development in Lagerbielke. And if Sunday's anything to go by, there was good bits, there was bad bits, but I think there's scope for development, improvement, and progress. And I've let's put it this way: I've watched better central defences go to Ibrox and not keep clean sheets and lose. So he did well. He did well enough because Celtic come off the park victors. And as I say, you're always happy to see guys wax lyrical about these kind of things to their, back in their own home and to their journalists that they trust, whatever. So good on them. But I think he'll certainly learn from that. And I think Brendan Rodgers was making the point on Sunday in his after-match stuff that, you got away with one there, big guy, sort it out type thing, in future.
Yeah, as long as he learns from his mistakes, that's the main thing. And I think the main thing all in is that him and his team kept a clean sheet in the game. Yeah. And Kyogo did the business at the other end of the park, and Celtic are 4 points clear. So, no complaints at this end. If you make mistakes, but they don't end up costing the team, or they don't cost the team in terms of a goal because it get disallowed, then I'm okay with that. I don't think you'll see that again from him. I think he'll learn his lesson pretty quickly. You could see the mistake coming from about a mile away. He stayed on the ball. It's like, what are you doing? You're a Celtic defender. Don't hold on to the ball for that amount of time. You know what happens next. Dessers wants the ball. He wanted that a bit too much, clearly, but, these things happen.
I think every Celtic supporter saw that in slow motion, didn't they? Saw it in pictures before it even developed that he was going to get dispossessed, albeit there was an infringement, but you could see it happening. Unfolding.
It's the sixth sense for Celtic fans. They know danger. We've seen this. I mean, like the sixth sense, we've seen this movie before. That's just what happens. Just on another news story, it's always great. I don't know about you, Tony, but I love when the superstars of world football talk about Celtic and talk about the club, because it shows, and I think it reaffirms how big a club Celtic are. And the latest player, probably the standout player in terms of the group, for Celtic, is Antoine Griezmann, World Cup winner for Atletico Madrid. He's also won the league with Atletico Madrid as well, so he's a household name in both international and club football. He's played for Barcelona as well, Real Sociedad, but he's been talking up Celtic in the group, in the group that Atletico, Celtic, Lazio and Feyenoord. I love saying that group. It's got a bit of prestige to it. 4 big names in the context of world football. But Antoine Griezmann was saying to the media, Celtic are a team who consistently win the league, score a lot of goals, and will be a very difficult game away. This group is wide open. This is not an easy group. I don't buy into that at all, just because there is not one of the favourites in the competition. The group is 4 teams, all who have a European pedigree and who have a big chance of progressing. As far as we are concerned, there is no room for complacency. Lazio finished second last season to a very good Napoli team. Feyenoord won their league. We have to respect the quality of the 3 other teams, but we know the most important thing is to focus on us and how we play. I had success with Atletico during my first spell for the club. I realised that this sounds like the Atletico way rather than the Celtic way, so I'll have a wee look at the other comments. Yeah, that's all that he mentioned, Celtic, those opening 2 paragraphs. It's always nice to hear from world-class players, and Antoine Griezmann certainly is one of those world-class players. I remember him in that 2018 World Cup. Absolutely incredible alongside Mbappe in that winning side. Always good to hear these comments from Antoine Griezmann and players like him.
I was just thinking there must be 2 Antoine Griezmanns, because there was a story the other day with them saying even Celtic won the European Cup. Which
was fake. They were fake quotes.
Yeah, I thought that. So that was, as I say, I didn't think a player like that would say something like that. So
it was quite well spoken as well, Griezmann. So I was surprised when those were even reported.
Yeah, so was I. That was my big thought, and I thought it's a bit unwise, and then I kind of questioned the validity of them, but I never read too much into it. But yeah, I think a lot of people, we looked at that group and we thought, it's going to be competitive. And I think most players will know that when they come to Celtic Park, they'll be in a game that will be competitive. They'll look at Celtic's recent record, though, and think Celtic can be got at, even at home. But it's up to Celtic to change that mindset, to change that, to change that mentality. That it's not, you don't want. I think you've said it before. You want to get back to those days when, Martin O'Neill's teams went into Europe and claimed scalp after scalp. People left with nothing. I'm fed up with the players coming with the whole tourist vibe. Oh, great atmosphere. We waltzed away with the 3 points again, but best atmosphere. I'm fed up with that. The best atmosphere in Europe, plaudit rubbish. I want to get back to. Don't care what the atmosphere's like. I just want Celtic to start winning on that stage again, and send them up the road pointless, or having been in a game and Celtic get something from it. So it's Real Madrid gave Celtic all the plaudits that were going last year, and at the end of it, I was sick. Bordered on patronising. Oh, you're a wonderful club, and you pat in the head. I don't want pats in the head or plaudits. I want points. I want Champions League points, and I want plenty of them. And that's why I say, go and have a rip at it. You can be fiercely competitive in this group, because I think these teams allow you to be competitive. Again, I caveat that with that's no guarantee that you're going to win. But I want more than 2 points from 18 that we got last year, Ryan. And if that means basically, as the song says,
2 points from 18 sounds so scathing when you hear it. That is true.
Putting on a show at home, then we've got to put on a show at home and see what happens away. You take your chance away. So, I hate that kind of fortress and all that kind of stuff. But, you want to make Parkhead a place. Sorry, Parkhead, I hate calling it Parkhead as well. Celtic Park, a place to be feared and a place where teams come and get no points. Not come, look around and say, oh, this is brilliant. And then they start their funky stuff.
Like a ticky box exercise. I've played there and I've won.
And that's what's annoyed me in the past few years, because it seems to be player after players went, oh, get Celtic Park on your wish list.
No wonder they enjoy it if they get wins.
Yeah, because they win. Great place to go and play football. Great arena. We won. I want them to say, no, you don't want to be going to Celtic Park because you can't get nothing. There was a great, a brilliant quote from years ago, and I've maybe said this before, but there was a boy talking about Postle YM, who played in Postle Park area of Glasgow, and notorious area, and so they were talking about when the guy said to me, do you know how hard it was to get a result in Postle? So I was just like, no. And he went, 1960 Real Madrid couldn't get a result in Postle. And I was just like, that's absolutely brilliant. And I kind of kept it with me all my life. And I thought, you know what? You can apply that to anything. You want teams to come to Celtic Park and not get a result. You want Celtic to play in such a way that, people fear coming to Celtic Park again. And, and can we get back to that? Goodness knows. But Brendan Rodgers has spoken about it. And if you knew how good 1960s Real Madrid were, Ryan, you would know they had Ferenc Puskas and Alfredo Di Stefano and Hento and Santa Maria and their team Del Sol. That's the team that won 7-3 against Eintracht at Hamden, 1960.
Di Stefano knows all about Jimmy Johnson, though. That's the...
correct. That is... So that kind of thing, so that's the guy said. So I want that. I want Celtic Park to be like what your man said. Not saying he's going to play like 1960 Real Madrid against Celtic, but I want it to be a difficult place to come. That's basically what he was saying. If teams just struggled in there to get a result, and that's what I want for Celtic Park, for European teams to come and struggle to get a result again. And I believe that Brendan's trying to work on that as well. You look at Man City. Man City came to Celtic Park when Rodgers was there the first time. They were on an 11 or 12 game unbeaten run, weren't they? They hadn't lost or even drawn, and came to Celtic Park and were in a game. 3 each, one of the best European games I've seen at Celtic Park in a long, long time. And, so that competition is a habit of doing strange things to Celtic players and the crowd, where even the most thankless or a seemingly thankless task, you can pull results out the fire. You look at Barcelona, as an example of that, Manchester United. So you're not asking Celtic players to do anything alien to their nature or something that's not been done before. This competition it's the greatest club competition on earth. That once that music kicks in and the fans get behind the team, it is a wonderful arena, but I want it to be a wonderful arena for our players, not for every travelling team to come and walks away with the result and say, "Oh, what a ground that was." Nah, I want Celtic players to rise to that, and I know, and I'm confident that the manager will drill that home to them as well. This time, you got to do better than last year. 2 out of 18, it doesn't make good reading. Yet people say it spells. Celtic had a spell in every one of those matches where they could have scored, coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. Let's do it this year. Let's do it this year, because I think you're in a fiercely competitive group, and that can bring out the fiercely competitive element in you to go and get some results. Why not?
I know that's it. Why not? Let's go out there and make a good account of ourselves and get more points. Celtic won one game at home in the Champions League. They'll be doing better than last season, which is a sad indictment. But I do totally agree with you on the statements that you're making, saying, there's good spells in the games, but that's not enough. You don't get points for good spells in games. You don't get a fraction. You don't get 1 point for playing well for 30 minutes or 60 minutes as it was against Real Madrid. I know that clip was going about yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it, the one of Callum McGregor's shot. Every time I watch that shot, I'm convinced it's going to go in the net. I know what's going to happen. Watching that shot go in again, I know it's going to hit the bar and go out. But one time I'm just hoping, just go and see what happens. Put them under pressure. That was a Madrid team that could have been got at. I know Celtic lost 3-0 on the night, but for 60 minutes, I think that was the feeling at half time watching that game at Celtic Park and them going nothing each with Real Madrid at half time. It made you dream in a weird way, because you'd seen this all-conquering Real Madrid side. They've won, 13, 14 Champions Leagues, and Celtic were giving them everything they've got, and it was a great game in the first half. Yes, it fell apart in the second half, but I think that's fitness levels and the quality of players shining through. But, if Celtic could do that for 90 minutes, anything's possible.
Yeah, see, if it's me, I'm compiling a DVD of Celtic's greatest ever victories in Europe, and I'm playing it before, showing them, home and away, like what can be achieved with the backing of the crowd, and yourselves puffing out your chest and saying, "I'm representing a big club on the biggest stage of all." Doesn't get any better than this. What an opportunity in life, and as a footballer, it's where you want to be. It's why you kicked the ball about as a kid. This is everything you've ever dreamed of. This is a pinnacle of club football. Go and embrace that challenge. See if you get down fighting. Great. Magic. But, come off the park after every Champions League match having given your all, 100%. Can't give any more than 100%. People that say 110, 120, no, 100%. That's all you can give.
That's all you can give.
Right? That's a bugbear of mine, but there you go. But and we'll accept it. What happens? The chips fall where they may, right? But I just see. I look at those three teams and I look at what they've done. Yet they're all cracking teams, but I think Celtic have the potential to be a cracking team as well. Why not talk yourself up too? There's no inferiority complex going into that at all. We shouldn't have, because we've got every right to be there and amongst those sides, and go and give it to them. Go and sock it to them and say, right, come on, let's see what you got. We'll show you what we've got. And if at the end of the day it's not good enough, it's not good enough. I'll accept that. That's fine. But I'm fed up with this glad to be here kind of thing. Getting to the Champions League group stages, getting the money, success. No, it's no success. I want to go to the last 16. I want to go to the final, but I I know it's been slanted in a way that it's probably an impossible dream, but I'm still a dreamer. I'm still an optimist. I'm still stupid. I'm a 51-year-old nearly grown man. But that's neither here nor there. But I want to get as far as I can. And see if we can get as far as we can in that, then I want to go into the Europa League. I want to always achieve, and always get better, evolve. So as you say, win one game, and you've bettered last season's points tally. Goalposts, they shift as you go along. So why can't Celtic be a competitive force of nature in that group? Why can't they finish second? Why can't they be one of these teams to the runner-up spot? Because you have to say that at this moment in time, Atletico Madrid are probably the powerhouse of the group. But then I've seen groups where I've thought teams would skate it, and they haven't. I just want Celtic to be as competitive as they possibly can, and I think that's achievable, and I think they can make a fist of this group. Could be wrong. By game 3, I could be saying we'll rip that up. But hey, I'm going in with as optimistic as I can about the team's chances. And I know they've got to improve from Sunday's performance. I'm not getting carried away in the back of that. But I think there's certain things that the manager will be working on, because the Champions League's looming large. We'll get players back. There'll be players integrated into the system. So I think the future's certainly a lot brighter than it was when, at the final whistle against St Johnstone, where people weren't looking forward to the competition. How can you not look forward to the Champions League? Embrace it, give it a go, see what we can do at Celtic Park, and then take your chance on the road, because you've got players there that can hurt opposition teams. I'm utterly convinced of that.
Yeah, where do I go with that? I can't top that. I love it when you go full Michael. Is it Michael Sheen Wales on me?
Yeah.
And I think you charge it up for once a week, and then it comes out. I can't control it. I can't stop it. I just allow it to happen. Give the guy his stage, and he will perform. And it seems as if loads of people in the comment section really enjoyed that as well. But why not? Dare to dream in this in this Champions League group. Anything can happen. Teams will take points off of each other, and you know what it's like. Anything is possible. I think for an international break podcast, we still managed to go for an hour and 2 minutes. Shows when I've not been on for a couple of days what we can talk about. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. Before we finish off today's podcast, if you are interested and want to support us just a bit more, please visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and you'll be getting top quality football journalism covering the club you love, which is Celtic. We get pieces on there coming every day. Despite it being the international break, we still endeavour to give you the best quality Celtic journalism, because as our former manager said, we never stop, and we never stop at the Celtic Way, do we, Tony? It's a constant machine. It keeps on rolling, despite, even though there's a temporary break in proceedings just now for Celtic, there's no break for the Celtic Way, and we'll keep on going to give you the best content that the internet has to offer. If you enjoy the live podcasts that we do, or the pre-recorded videos that we do at the weekend, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free, and if you subscribe, you'll be notified when the channel goes live, both in premieres for pre-recorded videos and for the live streams for pre and post match and the morning briefings. So if you are interested and do want to help us grow as a channel and get more people in the comment section, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And finally, if you do have an Apple or Android device and you have access to the App Store for the respective devices, then please check out the Celtic Way app that's now available in respective stores. It's a lot easier to view articles. You just sign in using your normal Celtic Way account, and you'll have it basically at your fingertips. I've used it a couple of times for reading articles, and it is a lot easier to navigate. I'm reading stuff all the time on my phone, and it is easier than reading it on a computer. So if you are interested, then please give it a go. It's in the Google Store and the Google Play Store and the App Store. If you type in the Celtic Way, it should be the first thing that comes up. Tony, thank you very much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it, as always. Hope you had a good time on it.
Pleasure, of course. Love it. Can't beat it.
Thank you. Talking about Celtic, what what can beat it, honestly? And thank you to everybody in the comments that got involved. It was still a busy show, regardless if it was an international break or not. You know, you're there and always there, as Tommy Burns would say. So thank you very much for that. We'll see you at the same time tomorrow for the latest version of the morning briefing. But until then, thank you very much and enjoy the rest.